What is going on, everybody? We are back this week. We're going to be recapping both the regional round and then previewing the super regional round and then making our picks of what 8 teams will be making it to the College World Series. And what a weekend it was. Definitely a lot of exciting baseball, a lot of walk-offs too. So let's waste no time. Let's get right into diving in to the super regional round. And first up, we have the Cinderella story, Evansville, the 4 seed. Evansville swept really through this Greenville regional. They got it to game 7, but won 6-5 against East Carolina. Wake Forest was the team to go 0-2 to this one. So Evansville, we saw last year with Oral Roberts, the 4 seed, making it all the way to Omaha. Evansville definitely had a great opportunity, but it's going to be a tough one as they have to face the number 1 overall seed, the Tennessee Volunteers. Tennessee really had no troubles in the Knoxville regional. They faced off against Southern Miss in the regional final, but Southern Miss was really just out of pitching as Tennessee won that one 12-3. So Tennessee really no trouble that they had in Knoxville. The offense really was productive, and then the pitching staff really showed up as well. So we have the number 1 overall seed Tennessee facing off against the number 4. They're not the number 4 overall national seed, but they're the number 4 seed Evansville. I think that a lot of people are probably going to be picking Tennessee, and so am I. I would love to see the Cinderella story at Evansville continue on, but I just think that Tennessee is just too complete of a team. Evansville is going to have to play their A game, especially to beat Tennessee in Knoxville. I think that this one is going to be a clean sweep. I think that Tennessee is going to get this job done pretty easily. So let me have Tennessee in 2 games, and I have the Volunteers punching their first ticket to Omaha and back-to-back years. So Tony Vitello, definitely a great job that he has done. So I have Tennessee moving on pretty easily against Evansville. Evansville, you had a nice run, but I just think that Tennessee, they're the number 1 overall national seed for a reason. I think they show it this weekend in Knoxville. So let's go ahead and move on. So we have Tennessee being the first team headed to the College World Series in Omaha, Nebraska. Now we have the Norman region paired up with the Tallahassee regional, and it is the number 8 national seed Florida State. They're facing off against the 3 seed coming out of the Norman regional, which is the UConn Huskies. Like Tennessee, Florida State also didn't really have much trouble. The early exit in this regional, though, was Alabama. Alabama went 0-2. They lost game number 1 to UCF 8-7, and then Stetson shut out the Crimson. So early exit for Alabama. So that's definitely disappointing to see if you're a baseball fan. And then UCF, they gave Florida State all that they can handle for about a couple of innings, and then Florida State hit a couple of home runs as they swept through the Tallahassee regional. So we see Florida State back in a familiar spot in the Super Regional. Like I mentioned in last week's video, this was a team that missed the tournament for the first time in like 40-something years. They're back. There is a top 8 national seed. So Florida State will host the Super Regional. So they'll be hosting the UConn Huskies, which was definitely a surprise to me. Believe I had Oklahoma just barely sneaking out of this one. I was either between Oklahoma and Duke, but UConn, their pitching staff really showed up when it needed, especially in game number 7. They won that one in dominating fashion, 7-1. Oral Roberts, the Cinderella story of last year, not the same Oral Roberts team as they went 0-2 in the barbecue. And it was UConn and Oklahoma. UConn started off this regional in 2-0. Oklahoma won game number 6 to push this regional to game number 7. And like I mentioned, it was just too dominating a performance for UConn. So Florida State definitely has all that they can handle with UConn, but in the end, I'm going to go with Florida State. I just think that is a hostile environment that UConn's walking into. Florida State with that high-powered offense, I think it's just going to be too hard to stop. Would not surprise me if this goes 3 games, especially the way that UConn has been pitching. But I just think that that Florida State, goes on and be the second team to make it to the College World Series. So we have one of our matchups already set in the Omaha with number 1 overall national seed Tennessee. Will be facing off against the number 8 seed Florida State Seminoles. So I have Florida State and Tennessee moving on, and we will move on down now to the bracket where we have the Fayetteville Regional is paired up with the Charlottesville Regional, and we had an upset in Fayetteville. Arkansas went 1-2. They won their first game against Southeastern Missouri State. Dropped game number 2, which was probably surprising to a lot of Hog fans, especially with Hagen Smith on the mound. That's back-to-back years. It feels like that Hagen Smith's been on the bump in regional play, and the opposing offense just really produced at the plate to get them the lead, and Kansas State was able to do that. And Kansas State just really swept through this one. They went 3-0 in this one. Louisiana Tech, they were one of those teams that went 0-2. That was definitely surprising. Louisiana Tech was a strong team coming out of the Conference USA, but they just really couldn't put together. I mean, that pitching staff just gave up too many runs. I mean, they gave up, I believe it was 17 to Kansas State, and then another double digits that SEMO got. So SEMO was definitely the surprise. Another 4 seed that got a couple of wins, and SEMO really put it to Arkansas, winning that one 6-3 to eliminate the host, the Arkansas Razorbacks. So it was a good season, regular season, but definitely not a good postseason that Razorback fans were hoping for Arkansas, and that just there's going to be a lot of questions around Dave Van Horn. I don't think that they're going to fire him, but there's a lot of questions that his team does well in the regular season, but can't really put anything together to make a deep run. So we'll see what Arkansas does in the offseason, but this was definitely that I was very impressed with Kansas State. That offense really showed up, especially Kalen Culpepper. One of those games, I believe it was against Louisiana Tech that he hit for the cycle. So, yeah, this offense starting to play really well. So we see the 3 seed Kansas State coming out of the Fayetteville Regional, and then the Charlottesville Regional, Virginia, a clean sweep for this ball club. I was very impressed with Virginia. Penn, they were definitely a strong 4 seed. They pretty much took it to both St. John's and Virginia late, but nonetheless, they went 0-2. St. John's, they went 1-2, and then Mississippi State went, I believe it was 1-2 as well. Actually, no, they got 2 of their wins against St. John, so they went 2-2. They fell to Virginia, didn't have a game 7 in this one. Virginia was up 3-2 late in that game, and then I believe it was in the bottom of the 8th or the top of the 8th, something like that. They just poured it on. They winning that game 9-2. So Virginia, really, really good performance in the Charlottesville Regional. So we had the 12 national seeds since Fayetteville. Since Arkansas didn't win that regional, Virginia has the luxury now of hosting this regional. And you know what? I'm going to go with my first upset. I haven't really gone with many upsets. I know I didn't do too many. I pretty much picked all 1s and 2s in the regional round. And you know what? Let's go with a couple of upsets. I feel like that's just how this college baseball tournament has been so far. And I'm really liking the way that this Kansas State team is playing. Their offense is starting to produce, and that you got to give it to their pitching staff too. You know, Arkansas, one of the hottest hitting teams in the SEC coming into this tournament, and Arkansas couldn't really put anything together against this Kansas State ball club. So I'm going to go with Kansas State in 3 to pull off the upset. Nothing against Virginia, but I just think that there's going to be a couple upsets here and there. There's not going to be all natural seeds surviving and advancing. I think that there's definitely going to be some 3s, maybe some 2s that go on to the College World Series. So give me Kansas State, the 3 seed. They advance on and continue their Cinderella story, if you want to call it that. They were snubbed in last year's tournament. So this is a team that's definitely playing well at the right time. So you know what? Give me the Kansas State Wildcats to advance on to Omaha. So we have another ticket punch to Omaha. So now let's go on to the Tucson and the Chapel Hill Regional. First at Tucson, what a disappointment for Arizona. 0-2 in the barbecue. They lost the first game to Grand Canyon, then lost the second game, not really either. It was 7-0 win for Dallas Baptist. And then West Virginia. I know we had a commenter in last week's video. He said, like, hey, watch out for West Virginia. And boy, was he right. West Virginia really swept through this one. Really great story for Grand Canyon, just ran out of pitching. West Virginia won an offensive slugfest in that last game as West Virginia is looking to go to Omaha for the first time, I believe, since the 1950s. So J.J. Weatherholt, really good weekend for him. And then that pitching staff, West Virginia, actually a note in this one, they brought back their Friday ace to close out against Grand Canyon. So I'll be interested to see if he goes back on the bump. This one with North Carolina, West Virginia will start on Friday. So I'll be interested to see if West Virginia pulls their ace or maybe shifts them to game 2. That's definitely a note to keep up. Now let's go to the Chapel Hill Regional. Now this was definitely one of the regionals that I was definitely looking at, and we got a heck of a game last night in game number 7 with North Carolina, LSU, Wofford, and Long Island in this regional. Long Island, I thought that they were going to pull off the upset of the tournament. They were up 8-5 in game number 1, but North Carolina with the grand slam by Gallagher. The freshman, I was very impressed with the freshman third baseman. I mean, there was just like so many hits that LSU could have gotten. He just scooped them up. North Carolina's defense, tip of the cap to them. They have some gold glovers on that infield. So that's definitely going to play if this ball club makes it to Omaha. And then Vance Honeycutt in that first game against LSU, he was tremendous. Had 2 home runs against Luke Coleman, one of the best pitchers in the SEC this season. So North Carolina, after pretty much it was 3-2 last night, if you watch the game and going after the third inning. And who would have thought that this would have been pretty much all zeros all the way into the ninth inning, and then North Carolina got that run to tie it up 3-3, and then North Carolina was able to seal the deal to win that game 4-3. So North Carolina, the number 4 overall national seed, survives and advances against a very good LSU ball club. And I want to talk about Wofford. I know that they only got 1 win in this one against Long Island, but they gave LSU really 2 hard games. So you got to tip your cap to the Terriers. But nonetheless, was North Carolina's regional to take. And the number 4 national seed will be hosting the number 3 seed, West Virginia. And I'm going to go with North Carolina in this one. I definitely think that this is I think that West Virginia with J.J. Weatherholt, one of the best hitters in the country, Vance Honeycutt, there's definitely some firepower on both offenses. I'm looking at the pitching staff, and I just feel more confident picking North Carolina right now. I just think that I know that they brought back their Friday night guy. He pitched 60 pitches and then pitched 50 pitches last night against LSU. So maybe he'll go game number 2. Game number 3, maybe if he gets there. But I just think that North Carolina's pitching staff is definitely set up well for this one. So I give to advance to Omaha ACC. This is definitely that could definitely go far, and heck, maybe even win the national title. We'll definitely see. So give me North Carolina to defeat the number 3 seed West Virginia. Okay, that is the left side of the bracket. Now let's fill out the right side of the bracket. Once I'm done with all this, I'll go back and list off the teams because it's not like last week where I go through the D1 baseball bracket challenge. You could see that. So let's move on to Lexington and Corvallis regional winners. Kentucky really swept through this one. They beat Illinois in the first 1-0 game, and then Indiana State came out of the losers bracket. But Kentucky, too much Kentucky in this one. Their offense really came to play in this one. Their pitching staff really shut down Indiana State's high-powered offense, and then Illinois. Illinois is no slouch. So they're the winners of the Big Ten, but Kentucky 3-0 as they move on to the Super Regional back-to-back appearances for the Wildcats. So they will be looking for appearance in Omaha this year. Then their Corvallis Regional, Oregon State, the same similar that Kentucky did 3-0 as well. You had UC Irvine Nichols and Tulane. This regional Nichols went 0-2. And then it was ultimately UC Irvine getting the job done, getting it to the regional final. But Oregon State, Travis Bazzana, too much of him. I think that Oregon State really set up well to make a deep run, even as the number 15 overall national seed. So Oregon State advances. And you know what? I have them advancing to the College World Series. Really liking the way that this Oregon State ball club is playing. This is going to be a tough environment heading into Kentucky, but this is a ballpark that could definitely turn offensive, especially with the firepower on both lineups. So would not be surprised if this is definitely one of the higher scoring matchups. I think that this goes 3 games. I do definitely think that Kentucky and Oregon State, this is definitely going to be a classic. But give me the upset with the number 15 overall national seed. I like the Beavers to advance to the College World Series. Nothing against Kentucky, but definitely liking the way that Oregon State. And like I mentioned, got to pull off some upsets. Can't go all chalk this time around. Okay, let's go on now to the winners of the Raleigh and Athens Regional. All chalk in this one, both the number 10 and 7 national seed advance. NC State cruised through this one as well. They went 3-0. South Carolina early exit, and also a note, they fired their head coach, Mark Kingston, so South Carolina will be in the market for a new head coach this offseason. James Madison was the team to get to the regional final, but too much Wolfpack as the Wolfpack advances on to the Super Regionals, and they face off against the Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia as well, like NC State, they went 3-0 in that regional. Army was the early exits, 0-2. Georgia Tech made it to the regional final. Georgia Tech really had an opportunity to win this one. They were up 3 runs, and then Georgia forced extra innings in that one, and then Georgia's offense, like they always do, they put it to bed. It would definitely wouldn't have been less exciting if we didn't get the Georgia Tech matchup. So I'm definitely excited that we got a matchup. I'm sure Georgia fans are. Give me Georgia to is advancing to that one. So you have the 7 seed Georgia Bulldogs, 10 seed NC State. This is definitely going to be a fun environment down there in Athens. And I'm going to have the Georgia Bulldogs advancing on to the College World Series. This is a game. This is a series that I think that this could definitely be a lot of offensive firepower. If you give me the advantage, I think that Georgia has the offensive firepower, especially with Charlie Condon. The man's almost hit 40 home runs this season. NC State definitely has some firepower too, but NC State definitely has a better pitching rotation in my eyes. But nonetheless, I think Charlie Condon definitely going to have himself a super regional. And give me Georgia to advance. I think it's been since 2008 since the Dogs have been to the College World Series. They make their first appearance in quite some time. This is another series I think that goes 3 games, 2 evenly matched teams. But give me the Georgia Bulldogs to advance to the College World Series. Now let's go on to the winners of the Clemson and Stillwater Regional. Clemson swept through this one. Early exit and a disappointing exit was Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt had a really nice showing in Hoover, but 0-2. High Point. I mean, for being a 4 seed, they gave pretty much everyone a game. I mean, the first game against Clemson, Clemson had to walk it off, and then High Point survived and to walk off themselves against Vanderbilt. So it set up Coastal Carolina and Clemson really swept through this regional. Really no problems for that. Really good season for Coastal Carolina, and Greg Gilmore goes out in style as being his last game as the Coastal Carolina skipper. So in Stillwater, though, we did have an upset here. The number 8 Florida Gators, even after, some people are saying that maybe they shouldn't have been in this tournament, but they definitely showed in the Stillwater Regional that they definitely belong. This was Game 7, and I got to give a tip of the hat to Brandon Neely in game number 7. He definitely saved Florida's bullpen for game number 7, and they were able to score just enough runs in a 4-2 victory for the Gators. So Florida looking like the team that we thought that they were going to look in the preseason. So we have a 3 seed Florida going up against Clemson. This would definitely be a fun game on the gridiron too. But I'm going to go with not an upset here. I just think that Clemson's going to be too much for Florida. I think that this also goes 3 games. I think there's going to be a lot of 3 games, and that's what you want to root for, just more college baseball on your television screen, especially if you're watching Squeeze play this weekend on ESPN+. But I'm going to go with Clemson in this one. It's at home, but I would not be shocked to see Florida make it back to the College World Series. They're playing really well, but I'm really liking the way that Clemson's been playing, and especially the way that they really dominated Coastal Carolina. That was a really good ball club coming out of the Sun Belt. So give me the Clemson to move on to the College World Series. This feels like a program that's been due for a College World Series appearance, so I think that this is the year to do it. Okay, let's look at the last Super Regional, which is between the Santa Barbara Regional and the Bryan-College Station Regional. We had another number 3 seed advance, Oregon. They swept through that one. They defeated UCSB twice after Oregon took down San Diego in game number 1. And Oregon, talk about, a pitching staff. The last game had a guy going 128 pitches for a complete game shutout. So that's definitely stepping up when you need it the most. So we have the Ducks back in a familiar spot. They were in this spot last year, hosting Oral Roberts, and it was a heartbreaker for the Ducks. So they'll definitely be looking to get to Omaha this year, but it's going to be a tough task, especially as they head on the road to face off against Texas A&M in Bluebell Park. And Texas A&M, we got the Texas A&M matchup. We won it, or some people won it. I'm sure that Texas A&M and Texas fans are definitely sick and tired of these teams getting paired up, whether that's on – they're even paired up in softball too. So Texas A&M, though, they did get the sweep of this one. Texas, though, was an early exit for them. They got beat by Louisiana. It was Louisiana, Texas A&M, but that regional final was pretty dang easy for Texas A&M. But I think that this is really an overmatch for Oregon. No offense to Oregon, but I'm just saying that Texas A&M, the way that this offense has been playing, you got Jay Slavielette, one of the best. You also have one of the best freshmen too, and you also have Brady Montgomery. He's starting to play well to his potential, and I just think that this pitching rotation set up real nice for them. So I think I would definitely have to give the advantage here to Texas A&M. Oregon, they're going to definitely have to pitch the lights out if they want to stay in this super regional matchup. But I think that Texas A&M, too good of a ball club to exit this early. So give me Texas A&M to advance the College World Series. So let's go ahead and recap my picks, and then we'll close the books. And then next week we will look at the College World Series. So I have the number one national seed defeating Evansville. So I have Tennessee moving on. Florida State will be moving on as well. I have Kansas State pulling off the upset against Virginia. North Carolina advancing over against West Virginia. Texas A&M over Oregon. So I have another national seed advancing. And then I have Clemson over Florida. And then also Georgia beating NC State. And then last but not least, Oregon State will be defeating Kentucky. So we have the 15 seed moving on. So that's going to be it. Let me know who you have advancing on to the College World Series in the comments. And that'll be our next show here, our college baseball show here on the Sports Scramble podcast. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest college baseball predictions and news as well. So if you want some more college baseball content, we definitely have it for you. Whenever we have the field of 8 revealed for the College World Series, we'll do one of these other preview and prediction shows. And we'll be making our picks next time for who will be hoisting up the trophy and becoming our new national champion in 2024.